Heyo everybody, Haku here with this week's read-through video for Magical Girl Raising Project, or Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku, Jokers, Chapter 4, finishing it off, going from page 30 until the end of it. So this, I haven't decided yet. I might read all of this video right now in one sitting, or I might read a bit and then take a break and come back and read the rest of it, but it's all going to be put together into one video. I don't know yet. I'm recording this really early because I had a little bit of extra time, and I know I'm going to be busy this weekend, so I'm actually recording it really early. So, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so where we left off last time, we learned a lot of stuff. We had some more deaths. We learned about Shufflin and her powers, which Shufflin is the best character in the series so far. I think Shufflin is so cool. Other than maybe Snow White, just because Snow White is such a good... It's hard to call any character a main character per se, but Snow White is such a good character, the way she's grown from arc to arc. But yeah, we learned a lot about the bad guys and all that, and kind of the goals that Grimheart has, because whoever created this place is somebody who had to have worked for her, and also she wants to learn what this technology is, because perhaps she herself could use it. So all of that's good, and quick rundown of where all the characters are. I think we have 4 that are dead. I think Prism Cherry, Kafiria, who we just saw die, and Kafiria, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like with Kafiria, there was a lot that could have been done with her ability that wasn't, storyline-wise. And that's something I love Jokers so far. I think this arc is really, really good. And despite it being really, really good, I would never say it's anything less than that. It's not restart level. I want to see another restart level arc eventually, because with this arc, though again, very, very good, it feels like we don't really know that much about a lot of the characters who have died. Not all the stories and deaths are super impactful, whereas in Restart they just did so many things amazingly. Like, we learned so much about every character, both as a magical girl and in their real lives. The aspect of which teams they were a part of was all really cool. Each death felt very, very important, and their stories all had meaning and motivation behind them. So we really haven't seen that as much in other arcs since that, and Unmarked, kind of. So I kind of hope we have a really, really great arc like that again at some point. But yeah, even though it's not Restart level amazing, I usually say Restart is like my favorite story from any series I've ever watched or read. Though it's not another arc at that level, I still think Jokers is like really, really good. And depending on how the ending and rest of it goes, it could be up there at Unmarked level for me. So we'll see. But yeah, where each characters are, the dead ones, Kafiria, Prism Cherry, Utakata, and Lady Proud. 3 of them are currently captured alive, which would be Quake, Tempest, and Umbrain, but I think Umbrain will probably die whenever Shufflin needs a deck refill again. So that's 7. One of them is off on her own, and that'd be Inferno, I believe, is off on her own now since Quake did the sacrifice scene. Then the bad guys, the 2 of them. I mean, the lines between good and bad, everybody has their own side, so it's kind of hard to tell sometimes in Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku. But the bad guys, kind of the villains, Grimheart and Shufflin, and that would leave us with a team of 6 main characters that are grouped together, and those 6 would be Snow White, Styler Mimi, Marika Fukuroi, and then 2 more that I'm missing. Stuntchica, and who else? Oh yeah, Deluge. So yeah, that'd be all the characters and where they are currently. So, let's get into reading, and I'll try to read this all in one sitting, maybe. It depends on how I feel. So we're starting out with Fall at the end of page 30. Fall. They attracted enemies from the desert to the hallways, then toward the forest room. They fought in the boulder room until finally the enemy's momentum were reduced. Strange fruit. As soon as Marika ate the seed, a large flower began blooming in less than a second. Thick ivies began growing around the petals. They were 20 centimeters thick and spread in a radius of 10 meters. The surrounding 5 demons were knocked around. Then they began wrapping around the boulders, swinging them up and using them to beat down the demons. Splashes of black fluid began splashing around. Snow White dodged a club swing of the mace by jumping atop a boulder, then jumped up forward with a hop. She whacked the shufflin that was just in her original location before the blunt end of ruler. She heard Filaru's heart going, "Please, don't avoid the traps." Okay. And using that, she was able to easily dodge Filaru's invisible threads. Okay. The shining blue deluge was aiding Filaru by pushing back the Jack of Clubs mace attack. Styler Mimi was jumping from boulders to lure away the King of Clubs, aiming for a pincer attack with Marika, making them into prey for whip-like vines. Thal was also observing the enemies. The Heart Shufflin were all scared and afraid. They don't tend to fight long, only caring about protecting themselves. Spade Shufflin possessed spears. They were strong, but against Marika, who was once a Mahou school student, her partner Mimi, a prison guard, Filaru, they were inferior in strength on their own against those aggressive frontliners. Still, they were dangerous in numbers. They must have realized that they had an even bigger advantage in numbers with the surprise attack performed on Utakata. Perhaps there were even other Shufflin that realized that their numbers had grown. Although most of the Shufflins that showed up here were spades and clubs, there could be just as many hearts and diamonds. The club Shufflin were armed with maces that were just as strong as the spades weapons. Everyone needed to be aware of them. The magical girls gathered at the foot of a large rocky mountain, gathering all the fallen Shufflin. Filaru quickly tied them up, or at least it looked like it. Fall couldn't see the threads. "So, there's no rope?" "It's okay. I'm not tying them. I'm sewing them." "What? That's a bit harsh." No, it's not. There's no pain at all." "Hey, got more important stuff here." Marika Fukuroi interrupted Filaru and Styler Mimi's conversation. The flower on her head was already withered. Also, another theory that I have is that because there are usually 2 jokers in a deck, we've seen the one evil Joker working for Grimheart, but I think there could potentially be a good Joker that's kind of the opposite in a way, but we'll see. Oh, maybe the good Joker is actually Stuntchica. They have the similar hat thing shape, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Marika Fukuroi interrupted Filaru and Styler Mimi's conversation. The flower in her head was already withered. She pointed at Deluge, who was sitting at the top of the mountain. Blue shine was already wrapped around her. While she seemed to be fatigued by the way she dropped her shoulders, she noticed that she was being pointed out. "Hey, I know we've been kind of fighting along with her for a while now, but is she really one of us? Wasn't she our target before?" "She's an ally." It wasn't Deluge that answered, but Snow White. "She's not hostile to us." "And why's that? Let me guess. Did you read her mind?" When Deluge heard the words "read her mind," she widened her eyes. Snow White nodded quietly without caring. "Yes, all that happened was that she was attacked while doing their magical girl duties. How do you think she feels about us?" When Marika seemed like she lost interest, she took her eyes away from Deluge. Maybe she really did lose interest. She seems to be more interested in strong enemies rather than strong allies. "Then, what do we do with them?" She pointed at the fallen Shufflins. "You want to get information? You want to torture them or something?" Marika asked this to Filaru as she held both her hands out and shook her head. Snow White also shook her head. "I can't get anything out of them. But you sure slice them up pretty good. There's lots of them. I know how it works." Snow White understood why the Shufflins had very little ego. At the same time, she understood how there can be multiple Shufflins at once. The memories are shared for every card. While the hearts were the ones following Grimheart in fear, the spades and clubs were told to stay away for us. They were worried of being discovered. I thought at first that each one had their own personality, but the way they think is like one of them dilutes their thoughts to all of them. There's probably a leader sharing her memory, the one in charge of all of them. They could hear the shutter winding up from the other side of the rocky mountain. Everyone looked there all at once. They saw the bulkhead open. Marika was the first to run up the rocky mountain, then Snow White, Filuru, Styler Mimi, and following a bit late was Princess Deluge. While all of them were lying down above the mountain, with some of the boulders behind them, they all saw who was at the bulkhead. When the bulkhead was around 30 centimeters open, a magical girl instantly entered the room. She looked familiar. Inferno! Deluge shouted out and stood up. Princess Inferno responded to her voice, looking up at the mountain. Her costume was partly ripped, her arm had blood dripping from them, there were tears flowing from her cheeks. What happened in such a short time? Princess Quake, who should be with her, was gone. There was only Inferno that appeared behind the bulkhead. Inferno ran up the rocky mountain, clinging to Deluge. She was sniffling. There was what seemed to be soot on her skin. Everyone around her was vigilant at how fast she ran, but the other magical girls barely noticed how she got there. Inferno hugged Deluge tightly. They came. They. Prism Cherries. Calm down, Inferno. What happened? Deluge's words were cut as she turned her eyes toward the bulkhead. The other magical girls did the same. The closing bulkhead had been pushed back up. One magical girl entered the room. Filuru's face became stiff. Styler Mimi's expression distorted. Snow White gripped ruler and went into a stance. Only Marika Fukuroi seemed happy. Oh, this one's going to be real tough, hee. She pointed at the shufflin that had just entered the room. Fall had no functions to assess a magical girl's strength just by looking at her. However, just by seeing her move, he understood how strong she was. There was no mistaking how strong the shufflin that just entered would be. Judging by how all the magical girls reacted, they also knew how strong she was. Her suit was spades. Her number was ace. Fall was able to figure out what that meant. The suits were important, but the numbers were also important. The shufflin that they've seen up until now had differences in ability depending on their clothing, spades and hearts. The suits were the biggest difference makers. However, even among the same suits, there were clear differences among their abilities and fighting power. Perhaps a bigger number meant a better use of that skill, which means this shufflin was 3 better than... which meant this shufflin was powerful. 3 was better than 2, 10 was better than 9, Queen was better than Jack, and Ace was better than King. So, the Ace of Spades that was there now would be the strongest shufflin of them all. Other than the numbers, there was no change among the spades. Her face had no expressions, no joy, no sadness, just looking up at the wind. The tip of her spear pointing up, stepping forward with one foot. Everyone saw the Ace's right arm, and her spear seemingly about to move. Fall was staring at her, but it didn't look like she moved, even though she instantly did move. The result of that instantaneous movement was Marika Fukuroi being blown away despite guarding. Styler Mimi tried to stop her, so she rolled down the mountain, but when she got halfway there, something became tangled up with her, Filuru's threads. Princess Deluge once again shone a brilliant blue, while Marika Fukuroi couldn't suppress her pleasure and roared in laughter. Snow White swung ruler, but it was parried, and while Deluge was avoiding the Ace's attack, she kicked the Ace's solar plexus, pushing her off the rocky mountain. The Ace swung her left arm. Filuru jumped in the air. She probably knitted a thread to the Ace's left arm, but the Ace swung back, sending Filuru smashing into the rocky mountain. The mountain rocked. There was a human-shaped dent where Filuru's body slammed into the rock. Then Snow White began swinging ruler. The Ace raised her spear vertically to stop it, but ruler changed orbit instantly. Yet the Ace flicked her spear to send stone piles to parry ruler. She was able to move faster than Snow White's enhanced reflexes by just a bit. Again, with me saying this arc would be amazing in anime format, seeing all of the girls team up to fight Ace of Spades would be really, really cool. Then okay, I just read that. It wasn't that they were no match, it was that the Ace's battle abilities were too high. Die, Inferno shouted as she thrust her spear. I thought she had a sword. As she thrust her spear, grazing the Ace's left arm, weighted down by Filuru. The Ace grabbed the handle of the crescent sword, despite her left arm becoming on fire. She gripped it and threw Inferno into the cliffs. At the same time, Ace blocked Snow White's attack with her spear, and she wanted to avoid Deluge's trident with her hand. Okay. But for some reason it stopped. The trident had already frozen the Ace's left hand. The spade's left hand was now being pulled as it was stabbed, causing the spade to lose its balance. It wasn't just Deluge that was doing this, but Filuru was also knitting under the cliff. Snow White was about to push the spade off with her posture, but running from behind the mountain was Marika Fukuroi tackling the ace. Snow White and Princess Deluge chased after the two girls that tumbled down the mountain, while Princess Inferno and Styler Mimi began running up the mountain as well. I get the feeling that they're finally going to beat the ace of spades, and then Joker is just going to kill Umbrain and revive it, and then it's going to kill somebody. I get that bad feeling. The ace elbowed Marika's chin, but Marika blocked it with her forehead instead. The ace tried to punch her in the cheeks, but hit Marika's nose instead. Blood flew. Marika's eyelids were swollen, her nose was broken. Gripping her opponent's arm while being punched, Bug Eater. The part that she grabbed immediately began to smoke white. She could hear the sound of meat melting. Okay. Despite being beaten up, Marika didn't let go. The ace thrust her middle finger into Marika's eyeballs, kneed Marika's stomach, and kneed Marika's arm so hard that the joints broke. Yet Marika kept holding on. Shufflin continued to be baked while thrashing her body, and the other magical girls began to arrive. Snow White slashed the ace's back with ruler, and Deluge and Inferno sliced the ace together with their weapons, so much that the ace bent back. The ace screamed in agony as her back had been sliced 3 times before being slashed in the throat by Mimi's scissors. Her monstrous scream began to disappear, blood blocking it and pouring out of her throat and mouth instead, spraying parts of it into Marika's face. While Marika's face was terrible and deformed, she had a wicked smile. The ace's hands grabbed the ground. Marika couldn't support her own body and began to fall as well. Then the ace instantly jumped up. The only one who could react to the ace's movements were Snow White. She kicked Snow White, but Snow White was quick enough to block with ruler. Though the force that was exerted wasn't able to be stopped, so Snow White was sent flying. Also, I still love that Snow White uses the weapon and it's constantly referred to as ruler. The ace grabbed Deluge's shoulders and swerved her. Inferno was about to slash the ace, but since Deluge was suddenly in front of her, she hesitated. Then the ace threw Deluge toward Inferno, blowing both of them away. Both her back and neck had fatal injuries, however she still hasn't fallen. The ace raised her leg. She was going to step on the fallen Marika's head. The moment before she could bring her heel down, Snow White ran toward her. She swung down on the ace's neck, causing blood to squirt out as her head flew off, painting her surroundings red. The ace's body continued to spasm a kick before finally falling on its back, facing the ceiling, finally unable to punch or kick anymore. Okay, so this is sad. Snow White just killed the ace of spades after a tough battle, and I feel like Umbrain is going to fuel its revival. Alright, so now we have Grim Heart at page 37. Let me get some water just in case. Okay. Grim Heart. She kicked the hearts that was beside her. She left the hearts alone and crying, and then Grim Heart began shouting at all the shufflin'. The ace of spades was killed? How do you explain this? The enemy was stronger than we thought. Oh, and she actually said something other than off with her head. She ignored Shufflin's reply as she threw a paperweight that was on the desk. It bounced off the floor and off the wall, and seeing the hearts fall down made her angrier. Do you plan on making a strategy that doesn't involve the strongest? No, I just made the mistake of thinking it wasn't difficult. Then hurry and restore yourself. Shufflin raised her scythe toward Umbrain. Umbrain began shouting while crying tears, but Grimheart couldn't understand the words. Even just looking at her patheticness made Grimheart angry. Why was she screaming anyway? Grimheart didn't understand. Okay, so again, Grimheart is interesting as a villain in just like seeing everyone is so far below her that they don't even understand each other, which is really, really cool and interesting. Her head rolled off. Joker absorbed her magical energy. Shufflin's only needed one magical girl's life force to completely replenish. Joker looked at all the newly born Shufflin, and Grimheart finally calmed down. Even though the barbarians are somewhat resistant, maybe is better, there was no reason for them to beat out the Shufflins. And now, back to Princess Deluge. They somehow managed to defeat the ace of spades. However, a suit of cards didn't only have spades in them. There had to be aces among the diamonds, clubs, and hearts too. And then there was the Shufflin's master, Grimheart, who was said to be invulnerable from Ultimate Princess Explosion, Filaru, who had dented a rock, and Marika Fukuroi, who was beaten half to death, were both injured. But even the non-injured people were in no positions to fight three aces and the Queen of Hearts. Deluge had proposed for them to at least move to where the monitors couldn't see them, so they went from the training rooms to the hallways. Seeing Princess Inferno running to the room with hand injuries and tears, Deluge can already infer what the message she was trying to send was. She didn't want to see it, or she didn't want to hear it, but she had to. Prism Cherry was killed. Maybe there was a mistake. There was no mistake. The briefing room. It was covered in blood. Sakura Kagami. She saw her under the night sky of the city. Even though she didn't see herself as a night owl, she did witness Prism Cherry's transformation. Back then, she was surprised. There were other magical girls than herself, not to mention that magical girl had been a classmate, which made her extremely excited. She talked to Cherry while her heart was throbbing the next day. Soon Prism Cherry became part of the Pure Elements as their fifth member. If only she wasn't behind Prism Cherry that day. If she hadn't seen her transform, if she hadn't called out to her, Prism Cherry wouldn't be dead now. Quake wanted me to escape, so she fought the Ace of Spades by herself, but maybe she's still alive. Maybe Quake and Tempest are alive. The chances of Quake and Tempest being alive are high. The one who replied to Inferno was Snow White. The Shufflins want to capture all the man-made magical girls. They also want to eliminate anyone who knows about the existence of man-made magical girls. They want to research them, so they need a live model. Quake and Tempest may be alive. We're not research experiments. Inferno's shouting caused everyone to quiet. Cold silence filled the hallways. What broke the silence was Marika Fukuroi, still heavily injured, lying on the floor, still smiling. Guess everyone did think of you guys as research experiments, huh? Even we did. The air became heavier. Filaru sighed out. We all got a text message to come. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe we were all lured here. I don't think so, Pone. That's far too overcomplicated for a trap. There's no reason to lure people here. The mascot character Fall, a half-white, half-black spherical creature, denied Filaru's words. It didn't matter which one was the truth. Even if they said they were man-made magical girls, even if they were experiments like Marika said, it's still important for them to escape this facility to survive. Her emotions of not wanting to die began to spring up strongly, not just for herself either. Tempest, Quake, Inferno. She wanted them to live. She wanted to escape with them too. Then she remembered Prism Cherry and tears almost flowed. Even their own rate of survival was thinning. The briefing room was occupied. The disruptors that they used as servants now became targets in the training room. She hasn't gotten her medicine, and the password to the entrance has changed. The Shufflins haven't all been killed either. According to Snow White, as long as they still have their original body, the Shufflins will never end. When she read the Ace of Spades, she was thinking, don't let her die. She wasn't distressed about her own death, but another body's. So, they just had to get rid of the main body, but that also meant that it was meaningless to defeat hordes of them if they weren't the main one. Even if the Ace of Spades was unnaturally strong by herself, Snow White, Marika Fukuroi, Styler Mimi, Filaru, Inferno, and Deluge were finally able to beat her by going 6 versus 1. Her back was slashed, her neck had been sliced with scissors, yet she was still attacking. Even after her head was decapitated, she was still spasming and moving. Deluge hugged herself. A chill passed through her spine. Then there was Grim Heart. Nobody here knew what kind of powers she had used. Snow White couldn't read her mind. Quake and Inferno used Ultimate Princess Explosion in a closed indoor space, yet according to them she barely moved. Not to mention everyone here had been injured. Filaru was sewing any cuts and lashes. Styler Mimi's restored torn costumes back to their own beautiful states, but she couldn't repair fractured bones, nor could she repair anything missing. Filaru was panting after being smashed into a rock mountain so hard that she left a body-shaped dent into it. Deluge and Inferno haven't had their medicine, so they couldn't use luxury mode. Marika Fukuroi had it the worst. Her right arm was fractured, her face was swollen, the flower on her head had withered, and Styler Mimi simply shook her head silently when asked if she could repair her left eye. She was being laid in the corner of the hallway. Even the relatively okay people couldn't say negative words, or could only say negative words. Grimheart's from the land of magic, right? Then maybe she's not trying to kill all of us. We could contact the Land of Magic too, so it's not hopeless, right? Stellar Mimi shrugged her shoulders, then looked at Marika on the ground. This shouldn't even be happening, Pone. Fall seems to not have given up yet, but Deluge didn't really think mascot characters would have that kind of emotion in the first place. From his high-pitched synthetic voice, Deluge felt no humanity from him. What even was a mascot character? The anime that she watched always had them as cute, small animals or something. The Land of Magic isn't some monolithic organization. They also have laws against inconveniencing other worlds too, Pone. What Grimheart is doing is obviously illegal, Pone. If we report this to the right authorities, then naturally they'd have to enforce their laws, Pone. Okay, but the problem is how do we report them, isn't it? Can we drill holes to get out? Might be impossible here, though. Marika was still lying down while tapping on the floor. There's ground surrounding this whole place. We can dig here. We've used Ultimate Princess Explosion in the desert room before, but there's a limit to where the bottom of this whole thing is. Oh, okay then, so much for drilling. Hey, Magical Girl Hunter, why don't you just read her mind and get the password or something? Then we can go back out. The Shufflins don't know the password, not even the Ace of Spades did. They weren't even thinking about it. Wait a minute, Inferno raised her head. Magical Girl Hunter. Koyuki, you hunt magical girls? Hell yeah, she does. You haven't heard of the legendary magical girl hunter Snow White? Any rogue magical girl's around, and she'll beat her up no matter where you are. You guys better watch out. You hunt rogue magical girls. Snow White smiled softly. To Deluge, this was the first time she's ever seen Snow White, and nodded. And Marika Fukuroy heartily laughed while still lying down on the floor. Well, there you go. The only one that knows the password's obviously Grimheart. The only one who can read her mind is you, Magical Girl Hunter. But you can't apparently, meaning we gotta beat her up directly. Why was she having so much fun? Even in the last battle she had lots of fun. Meanwhile, all Deluge could think about was wanting everyone else to survive, and for Prism Cherry to be alive. We're all magical girls like this. Though Mimi was looking at Marika as if she was an abomination, Filaru didn't look at her that way, but she did sigh out. Okay. This is gonna be fun. It's not fun, Pone. Certainly not fun at all. Of course it's not fun. You look like an idiot for saying that. Oh hey. Inferno pointed at Marika Fukuroy. You can shoot beams. You can open the door with your beams. Nope, Marika promptly answered without giving it another thought. This entire facility's immune to the effects of magic. You know Magical Daisy's daisy beam? Can't do crap in here. You won't know until you try. Look, there are certain environments you need to grow flowers. Marika ate a seed. Soon a white flower began to bloom on her head. With both palms on the ground, the petals slowly began to open. And from then, green fruit was sprouting at all the petals. Marika stripped out the fruit and threw it at Inferno. Without water and sunlight, they'll die. If I grow my plants carefully and slowly, they bloom forever. Being underground isn't the best place for plants to be. Maybe you should have thought of that before you came, muttered Mimi. Marika ignored her and pointed at the fruit she threw at Inferno. Still, this isn't that bad if you want a quick harvest. I'll just ignore the fact that growing them up isn't the best thing. If you have any serious injuries or anything, you lick that fruit and the pain stops. Don't lick too much of it. Not my responsibility if you get addicted. Okay then. Stellar Mimi gave a serious expression and added, You'll actually turn into a drooling idiot if you overuse it, so be careful. Inferno pinched the fruit with her fingertips. It just stops the pain. That's actually pretty useful, though. Marika looked like she was standing up, leaning hard against the wall. Oh, by the way, guys, we've got company. Those who were biting their lips, crying out their eyes, staring into the ceiling all looked at once. It was from the briefing room. But on the other side of the entrance, Okay? What? Oh, by the way, guys, we got company. Those who were biting their lips, crying their eyes out, and staring into the ceiling all looked at once. It was from the briefing room, but on the other side from the entrance. Everyone withdrew to the corners, wielding their weapons and waiting. But then the briefing room bulkhead began to move up, and the magical girl stuffed behind it, began to flow toward them. Deluge grasped her trident, a pincer attack. Even though Deluge knew that this was a hopeless situation, when she saw who appeared on the other side of the door. Her knees felt like they were about to collapse. She held down her body that was about to fall and grasped her trident with trembling. Her body was wobbling. They were spade shuffling. The ace was leading them, with Jack, Queen, and King following them from behind. This is like really freaky because this is a hopeless situation. How are they going to deal with shuffling, especially when they still have two other sacrifices? The briefing room shuffling were led by an ace of clubs, with Jack, Queen, and King following them as well. There were at least 10 shuffling behind them all. Deluge looked toward them with dizziness and difficulty. She wanted medicine. She wanted to make herself feel confident. Even if she knew she couldn't win, it was better to stand up as a hero than to fall down as a coward. Without the medicine, she couldn't feel this. She was afraid to die. She didn't want to die. The shuffling still had no facial expressions. They were magical girls all the same. Maybe their emotions had already been killed long before. Then Marika Fukuroi laughed. Now this is fun. Perhaps she wanted to go ahead of everyone, but she couldn't even do that. The minute she stepped forward, Snow White grabbed a hold of the petals in Marika's flower and pulled her back, then held out her Naginata-like weapon as if to stop the other magical girls. Go back. Hurry. Meaning the briefing room side, the one with all the clubs, with all the clubs shuffling gathered up, is where they were headed. Deluge and Inferno looked at each other, but before they could ask Snow White, they chased after her. The careless Marika Fukuroi was thrown in the direction, still confused at what's going on. Stellar Mimi and Filaru followed behind. Just before they reached the mace-wielding club shuffling, they saw a light. A loud boom, then the whole hallway was swaying. They were likely to collapse thanks to the blast alone. Oh, she must have read somebody's mind, and that's why she gave the order. Then the hallway was swaying. They were likely to collapse thanks to the blast alone. But Deluge held fast and grasped her trident. An explosion. The club shuffling were opening their mouths, but Deluge couldn't hear what they were saying. Her ears were ringing, and she was only waving her weapons while trying to get her bearings. The shuffling had no differences in how they cooperated. The lowest number shuffling died. The two next to that collapsed. The three higher than that were clashing their weapons. Just when shuffling was approaching Deluge, thump, she heard a sound, before finding out that a knife had been stabbed into Shufflin's head. The other magical girls were also slashing up the enemies. Okay. Alright. I wonder what happened with that explosion. Knife had been stabbed into the Shufflin's head. The other magical girls were also slashing up the enemies, some of them punching them. The club Shufflin were falling down on the floor. Even the top number spades were confused. The Shufflins had been stunned by that explosion, although their expressions haven't changed. They're moving quite groggily. If they were able to strike them while they were stunned, they can win. Deluge looked back. Oh! Then she saw the knife-juggling clown Stuntchica. Stuntchica coming in for the clutch. I had totally forgot about Stuntchica. Stuntchica, you're alive. Filaru asked her, to which Stuntchica replied by making a circle with her index finger and a thumb. But now the knives fell, so she panicked and picked it up again, restarting her juggling. Did you also make that explosion, Pone? Once again, Stuntchica made a circle with her fingers, but this time she let the knives fall. Oh my god. Stuntchica, like a hopeless situation, Stuntchica just came in clutch. I am so hyped. Oh my god. Stuntchica best girl. She just took out all the clubs and saved everyone. Oh my god. And now they're going to be able to make it to the room where Grimheart is. And we still had 2 chapters left. This still seems like kind of a hopeless situation, but oh my god, Stuntchica. And now we have more of the interlude. We got 2 pages left of it, so let's go. Interlude. Oh my god, I'm just so freaking hyped. Oh my god. Shufflin is like one of the coolest characters, but Stuntchica hype. Oh my god. Pithy Frederica. Pithy had gone to the inn where she had met Nanako-san. She prepared some tea and healing herbs and rented a room at the inn. The innkeeper, an old toothless woman, just let her be. Okay, current theory still on who Stuntchica might be. Number 1 theory, Stuntchica. Number 2 theory, Mana, maybe, because I don't think we've seen Mana in the interlude story, and there's nothing saying Stuntchica isn't a mage. And third is good JOKERS shuffling. So top 3 theories right now. But either way, she prepared some tea and healing herbs and rented a room at the inn. Of course, it could also be this could be happening at a different time, and maybe if her knives never miss, she could potentially be Ripple, but I doubt it. The innkeeper, an old toothless woman, let her be. Pithy never really played video games. Games are entertainment after all, and for Pithy, the sight of a magical girl was entertainment enough for her. Also, I forget, the innkeeper is a former magical girl too. Also, games tend to immerse you in a fantasy world. Pithy was already living in one. Still, Pithy realized that games are actually quite important in your life. It does provide your brain with visual stimulation and can exercise the brain. Okay. Not to mention, her apprentice, Keek, loved video games. So Pithy knew a bit about games, even if she hasn't played one before. That old role-playing game where you find 4 crystals to save the world. That adventure game where you play as a pirate in some island. That simulation game where you play a god with a household of people. So, a pirate on some island. Adventure game. Not sure exactly what they're referencing, but the first one is definitely referencing the original Final Fantasy, and then simulation game I'm assuming is just The Sims. The strategy game where you play as a general of 2 world powers. Oh wait, is that... I don't know how Fire Emblem works. Even that elf, Clamberry, had her mascot 5 create a social game to attract teens to become magical girls. Pithy needed to get on with the times. Plenty of games that Pithy had seen, though none she had played before. Now, however, she was having quite some fun playing a game. This game was set in real life, though, and the objective was simple. Get everyone to work together. Why was that so hard? Pithy remembered that so many people wanted to work together in Clamberry's games, but people just had to ruin that. Now it seems to be the opposite. People are trying to turn the players against each other, but Pithy had to make them work together. "Are you doing all right in there, dear?" asked the innkeeper. "I'm fine, thank you," replied Pithy. "Will you be needing the medicine soon?" "Oh yes, please. The tea would be nice as well, thank you." "All right, dearie." Pithy wrapped a strand of hair on her finger and looked at the crystal ball. Now the game can resume again. Okay. So this is interesting. Maybe Pithy, instead of being evil behind the scenes, is actually being good, and she's pulling people and objects in and out of the ball in order to help them all work together and get them through this against Grimheart and Shufflin. So perhaps she's the one who was able to throw Stuntchica back there, and it could explain how some characters ended up where they ended up, but I'm not exactly sure. So yeah, not exactly sure. And mentioning the medicine, maybe she's going to throw medicine in there for Deluge and Inferno. So this is really, really interesting. We have Pithy playing a role maybe on the good guy side of things, actually. That's really cool. This was such a hype chapter. Like, even starting from the beginning from my first 2 videos on it, this has been such a good chapter. Like, I can't even freaking believe it. And my hype for Stuntchica is so high. I love Stuntchica. So yeah, I guess we'll see where the rest of the things go with 2 chapters left. It really feels like a hopeless situation because they're completely overwhelmed by the spade shuffling, but at the same time, they are making it to that room, and if they have Pithy helping them out, kind of like God mode, pulling things out and putting things back in using her crystal ball, having Pithy as an ally could actually make things work really well. And it also could mean that, like I was saying, Mana or Ripple could actually be Stuntchica, because like I said, with the knives not missing necessarily, and also the fact that they're people that Pithy would have had access to their hair, especially with Ripple directly working for Pithy. So there is a chance either of them could be Stuntchica. But either way, I don't like another person being Stuntchica though. I kind of hope Stuntchica is just Stuntchica, her own person. But either way, we'll see how things go. So yeah, if you did like the video, comment down there, tell me what you thought of this chapter, what you thought of my thoughts in it and all that, my reaction. Subscribe for more. Magical Girl Raising Project, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I will try to keep you updated there as best I can on stuff for the channel. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me about this series or anything else, then just ask and I can give you a link. It's free and open for anyone. That's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.